Halo 2 was one of the most anticipated video games of all time, selling 2.4 million copies 24 hours after its release back in 2004. You play as a super soldier called the Master Chief and fight against a group of aliens known as the Covenant in order to save humanity. Part of what makes Halo 2 unique is how Bungie, its developers, designed the game's artificial intelligence. The AI in Halo 2 is charming, challenging to fight against, and quite complex, it being a big factor that contributed to the franchise's success. The Covenant and all NPCs use an AI technique called behavior trees to govern their decision-making process. Behavior trees are a mathematical model of plan execution, or in this case, the model for a decision-making process. In Halo 2, the behavior tree takes in an NPC's perception of the world around it, mainly sight and sound in this case, in order to make decisions. It features non-leaf nodes that can hold other nodes within it, or leaf nodes that exist as a point of expression/execution. In-game behaviors are actually programs that control actors for a certain period of time so that they can achieve an objective such as aiming, shooting, and moving. This diagram is an abbreviated version of the fundamental decision structure for the game's AI, which exists as hard code within the game. These nodes, illustrated by the boxes, represent different decisions and behaviors an AI can potentially have. Everything that a character can do in Halo 2 are each listed as one of these nodes. The role of the non-leaf nodes is to make choices, whereas the leaf nodes execute certain actions. Non-leaf nodes make choices based on either custom code or competition determining which child node has the highest priority. This is done whenever possible, as writing logic for deciding between a great number of possible actions is a lot more complicated, especially when it comes to implementing core game mechanics. This is basically how Halo 2 controls and enables everything the AI does within the game. Considering every single character variant, behaviors per variant, and parameters per behavior, there exist 15,360 parameters to keep track of and maintain. It is a complex system built from individually simple parts. Bungie uses a couple of tricks and design philosophies in order to manage the problems that arise due to the complexity of the system. Custom behaviors are inserted into the tree depending on the character and variant, and are absent from trees for characters that don't use it. This creates an easy way of differentiating between the different types of aliens and keeps redundancy out of the tree. An elite, seen as the leaders of the group, will charge at you when they take enough damage. Compare that to grunts, which live up to their namesake by running away whenever it gets too dangerous. Impulses solve when priority is not constant. While an enemy elite is actively fighting you, they don't want to be distracted by getting in a vehicle, unless the player is also in a vehicle, in which case the enemy should enter the vehicle to be on the same level playing field as the player. Therefore, an impulse node is inserted with a higher priority level, so that whenever that special situation occurs, it will be executed. Here is the example in action. However, when using impulses for rare circumstances, that child node can end up being unnecessarily demanding, having to be checked every single tick. To solve this problem, stimulus behaviors are introduced. These check for rare circumstances so that when one occurs, an impulse node is inserted into the tree just for that occasion. An example of this would be a grunt fleeing when its leader dies. Joint behaviors occur when a character invites those around him for a particular action of which they are able to accept. An example of this is when Marines are flipped out of a vehicle. After being ejected from their seats, one of the Marines recognizes the state they are in and invites the other two to assist in flipping it back on its wheels. All three get into position, successfully flip the vehicle, and proceed towards the battle. These techniques used by Bungie ultimately made for an AI that is able to reliably recognize many different situations and react accordingly, resulting in enemies that felt intelligent to play against. Due to the way they've been programmed, the Covenant and Marines are pretty dynamic, able to accomplish a number of tasks that make the game more interesting. Halo 2 was one of the first games that pioneered behavior trees, and ever since they've become a staple in game development. There is a lot to learn from its AI design philosophies, with the gameplay experience holding up to this day, especially in the remastered Anniversary Edition.